So now let me show you how to create a custom middleware function. So here on line 5, we are adding JSON middleware function. After that, we are going to call app.use. Once again, we call this method to install a middleware function in our request processing pipeline. So here we need to pass a function that takes a request response and next, which is a reference to the next middleware function in the pipeline. So we simply pass a function here. Now in this function, let's do a simple console.log logging. Let's imagine this middleware function is for logging every request. So we perform our logging and then we call next to pass control to the next middleware function in the pipeline. If you don't do this, because we are not terminating the request response cycle, our request will end up hanging. Let me show you what happens. So I'm going to comment out this line, save. Now back in Postman, on this tab, I'm going to send a simple HTTP GET request to our courses endpoint. So send. Look, we are not getting a response. It's loading. And if you look in the console, you can see our logging message. So this indicates that our middleware function was executed successfully, but because we did not pass control to another middleware function to terminate the request response cycle, our requests end up hanging there. We can also create another middleware function for performing authentication. So I'm going to select this code, duplicate it, and in the second middleware function, I'm going to change this message to authenticating. Now back in Postman, let's send another request. Now look, in the terminal we have two messages, logging and authenticating. So what I want you to pay attention here is that our middleware functions are called in sequence. First our logging middleware function is called, then the middleware function for authenticating the user, and finally the route handler, which is another middleware function. Now in terms of clean coding, when you want to create a custom middleware function, you don't want to write all the code inside app.js file or app module. You should put each middleware function in a separate file or a separate module. So back here, let's create a new file called logger.js. Now back in app.js, let's grab this middleware function here, get it, and back in logger.js. We paste that here. We give this function a name like log, and finally export it like this, module.exports. We set this to this function. So this module exports a single function, okay? Now back in app.js, on the top, we load our new module. So period / to indicate the current folder and logger. We get the result and store it in a constant called logger. And then we can install it by calling app.use and pass this logger function here. Now you understand exactly what this line means. So when we call Express.js, it returns a function, a middleware function that has 3 parameters, request, response, and next. That middleware function passes the request.body. And if there is a JSON object, it will set request.body, and then it will pass control to the next middleware function. Okay, so let me delete this comment. Back in app.js, so this is how we define a custom middleware function in a separate module. Import it here and then install it by calling app.use. We could use the same technique for the second middleware function, but I'm going to leave that to you as an exercise.